That was Monaco style type of qualifying. I mean, hey, the Monaco without walls, so it definitely delivered. I mean, this qualifying format, let's speak about that first, get into the analysis, especially just about qualifying and what we can expect into the race with Mercedes, with McLaren, with Aston, all the big teams, Red Bull obviously included, what we'll expect there. But let's talk about the qualifying format first, and then just in general qualifying. Okay, I gotta say, I was very skeptical, especially because the practice sessions were trash. I gotta be honest, the practice sessions were not fun to watch, but if it results in a quali like that, I'm open to it. I'm very open to that. I would love to see how these teams adapt. I mean, we saw in Q1 and Q2, Alfa Romeo putting that car in places it should not be. It was faster than Max Verstappen on the tires. Now, I think this has a lot to do with actually how teams warm up their tires, and Red Bull is actually quite weak in that. Aston the same, and so is Mercedes. So that's how we saw George Russell actually fall out in Q1. But a major surprise and something that I am so happy about is Daniel Riccardo passing Q1 and getting into Q2 and beating an Aston and the Mercedes and an Alpine all in one run on his first run. I mean, props to Daniel. He was phenomenal in this qualifying, especially for the car that was given to him. I mean, he definitely outqualified Yuki after not looking like the better racer all weekend. I can't lie. Like, Yuki looked more comfortable, but comes to show, even in an uncomfortable car, Danny Rick is Danny Rick, the Honey Badger. But Lance Stroll falling out in Q2, quite disappointing. The car had a lot more pace in it. The Haas cars, dude, Nico Hülkenberg is working magic in this car. Honestly, like, the car has pace, like especially quality pace, but it's just not a good car on balance overall, and I'm shocked to see it even get into Q3. Carlos finally loses his Q3 streak, even though he was been in Q3 every single race, and now Fernando is the only one to keep it. But that medium range was also fun to watch. Alfa Romeo, again, being outstanding, which is like quite shocking, but this must just be a perfect track for them. The slow to medium speed corners really suits their car, where they don't have to brake as much, but they're still going on that limit. So they're kind of like in the middle of hard braking and hitting higher speed corners. It's just like a good balance with that car. I guess that's the only thing that Alfa Romeo has really going for its car. But it's nice to see Guan Yu Zhou and Valtteri Bottas really show this off. I mean, for the Q3 runners, we saw 20 laps. 20 laps in qualifying. Yep. Lewis 20, Max 21, Lando 20, Oscar 20. Like, that's awesome to see. I think that's phenomenal for our eyes to see the cars going just that fast, but also the amount of times the lead has changed. I mean, all the commentators were convinced Lando was going to get on pole position. I thought that Alonso was going to get within the top 3 watching the race. I think he should have, but we'll go into that later. But regardless, McLaren stepping up to the plate, man. Oh my goodness, what have they done with that car? Clearly, they've learned something that the other teams haven't. Mercedes, it looks like that front wing is working to what they wanted it to on the balance in slow speed and medium speed corners. So, James Allison was right. I think they can fight. I think they can fight with Max Verstappen. We could see a repeat of 2021. I think it's going to be very aggressive seeing Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen go into turn 1. It's going to be very reminiscent of 2021. This is, I told everybody that Hungary was going to be a great Grand Prix. Like, just outside of even like YouTube. I like this track, personally. I always feel like it delivers in one way or another. For some reason, it does. Because of the real, like, I would say that the way that the circuit is laid out, it makes for a very fun track. Now, we could get a very bunched up, I would even say top 9, if Lewis Hamilton can hold a lead. Now, I think the Mercedes car has enough pace to beat the Red Bull in race pace. They're very close and similar. McLaren isn't far off, and Aston Martin is not far off. Now, Ferrari's tires were shredding pretty quickly. I actually thought at some point Charles could have even put in a lap to be fast enough to go to where Lewis was at, but obviously, I think the issue, and what was the issue for both Charles and Fernando Alonso, was their third sector. By the time they got there, their tires were chewed up. Now, Fernando had a huge understeer moment going into the last third sector, and that killed his lap. I mean, I remember seeing it like live on board, and I was like, no. He was potentially in to run for a 3rd or 4th position. Like, he lost a solid 3 to 4 tenths within that lap. It was just not a great third sector. Leclerc had the exact same thing. The tires were just too heated up going to the third sector, and the car just was not turning properly. So they put a lot into that first and second sector, showing that the car's capabilities are just not there. And this is pretty disappointing as an Aston Martin fan, but also just in general, the Aston Martin car on a track that it needed to deliver, on a track that if you put, I guess, the beginning spec cars of everybody on this track, they would have been the fastest car here. Like, it wouldn't have even been, it would have been close, obviously, with Red Bull, but they would have been the #1 car here if we had Bahrain spec of cars. So it comes to show you that the car is, it's not necessarily regressing, it's still a good car, but they need to update more. Obviously, they are waiting on those upgrades from, I guess, the wind tunnel time that they had. Those are supposed to come in the second half of the season. So let's see if they really can step it up in that type of sense, because this is a track they needed to perform on. As for Ferrari, I think they had a decent qualifying. I think they're going to struggle in the race, so those tires are still shredding faster than the others. Mercedes and Red Bull and McLaren. These are the three teams we need to talk about going into this Grand Prix. Now, yes, overtaking is hard, but Lando, hey, on his mediums and even in his hards when he was in practice 3 and practice 2, they had very solid pace. The McLaren is a racy car. We can actually see the McLaren take it to max. Something similar to Silverstone. The Mercedes still has the upper edge by just the slightest bit when it comes to tire wear. They will be as competitive as Red Bull. It will be a very close race in that sense. My only worry is the straight line speed that Max Verstappen has, but I'm expecting Lewis to defend this guy like his life depends on it. So it's going to be reminiscent of when Max was getting attacked by Lewis and he needed to defend Brazil. I'm sensing that type of rivalry going into this, especially in the way that they're going to fight on track. But the Mercedes car does have the pace to win this race on genuine merit. They were fast in practice, even though Lewis lovingly loves to say that the car feels terrible and worse. It's just a sense to get the team, I guess, more motivated. You know, Mick Schumacher was working a 9 to 5 this weekend, and I'm talking about 9 a.m. to 5 a.m. working in that simulator, because whenever he's working in that simulator, apparently this car is working flawlessly. So props to Mick, I guess, too. Mick showing it off for Mercedes and getting that car in the right setup. But all in all, what a lap by Lewis Hamilton. I mean, he just knows what he's doing on this track. This is his bread and butter of a track. 9 pole positions in one track. He's the first to ever do it. I mean, absolutely phenomenal. But Max is going to take it to him. I know Max is going for that another victory in a row. He's trying to beat that Vettel record, even if he says he doesn't want to. He's going for it. We know how Max is. I mean, but I love that about him. I think that's a great trait to Max. He wants to just beat everything and beat every competition. So Max finally gets his fight. He said he was bored. Here you go. Mercedes versus Red Bull going into this, and McLaren are up to challenge. Alfa Romeo will fall back, don't get me wrong, but a very good improvement. I mean, all in all, phenomenal. The biggest outliers to me are Daniel Ricciardo stepping it up, Guan Yu Zhou stepping it up, Valtteri Bottas stepping it up. I mean, this qualifying gave us like everything we needed. Put this format more often. I loved it. I think it was phenomenal. Just up the amount of tire allocation we have in practices. I think so. Maybe by 1 or 2, give us another medium and another soft, I would probably say. Because I think the race tomorrow might even be a 3-stop. That's, Sam Collins was even talking about it on the F1 channel, that the race could be a 3-stop potentially, considering the amount of tire wear. And especially because they have to go through a hard, a medium, and a soft, and a couple actually softs, going into this qualifying. It's going to be compact going into this race. I'm expecting a thriller from all our teams. The top 5 teams, just in general, are going to have, it will be a very, very close battle. I expect everybody to be fighting. I think even Aston Martin can come up and fight the McLarens. Now, let's see. They had the fastest race pace in practice. Now, how much does that mean? We'll see. We'll see. I mean, it never really means too much. They were the most consistent, but McLaren was also stupidly fast. So I guess we'll see. A safety car could change the whole entire outcome of the race. But no safety cars, no nothing. This is going to be an entertainment fest for us. We finally get a different person sitting on pole position. Can Max Verstappen take it to him? Can Lewis actually get his first win in practically almost 2 years? Let me know your thoughts down below. I would love to hear everybody's opinion on this qualifying and going into the race. I'll have a video out tomorrow after the race, talking about it, getting into everything. Hope you guys enjoyed. The support has been phenomenal, so thank you all so much. Leave a like, subscribe, it would mean the world, and peace.